Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Tensions remain high between India and Pakistan. It was a day of meetings in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself chaired 3 of them. It's all part of a choreographed and meticulous response. Over in Pakistan, it's panic season. They're using threats and doctored videos to deter India. We'll bring you the 2 contrasting styles tonight, India's planning and Pakistan's panic. Also on the show, a big admission in Pakistan's parliament. Their minister admits shielding the Pahalgam attackers at the United Nations Security Council. A report on how terrorists infiltrate from Pakistan into India, how Kashmir's progress rattled Pakistan into plotting this attack, why Harvard is platforming Pakistani leaders days after the Pahalgam attack. All this and more lined up. The headlines first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will not be travelling to Russia for its Victory Day celebrations. Instead, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will attend the parade in Moscow. Prime Minister Modi is focused on India's response to Pakistan after last week's terror attack in Kashmir. Russian President Putin is expected to visit India later this year. The Philippines and New Zealand sign a troops deal, allowing the deployment of its forces on each other's territory. The Visiting Forces Pact is the latest in a series that Manila has secured amid frequent confrontations with Beijing in the South China Sea. The Philippines has already signed similar agreements with the US, Australia and Japan. Sweden arrests a teen suspect after 3 people were killed in a shooting at a hair salon. The assailant fled the scene, triggering a manhunt. The attack took place in the city, which is the home base for 2 of Sweden's most notorious gang leaders. For years, the Scandinavian country has struggled to rein in gang violence. Germany's Chancellor-in-waiting Friedrich Merz clears the final hurdle in forming a new government. The centre-left Social Democratic Party agrees to a coalition deal with his Conservative alliance. Merz will assume office next Tuesday, ending half a year of political paralysis in Europe's top economy. And Taiwan says Somalia is blocking entry to the self-ruled island's passport holders, alleges pressure from China on the East African country. Beijing has welcomed the ban. This move comes as Taiwan forges closer ties with the breakaway African region of Somaliland. The last few days have made one thing clear, or should I say clearer. India and Pakistan are on different paths. Here in India, there is clarity. Over in Pakistan, there is chaos. Indian officials are planning a meticulous response. Meanwhile, Pakistani officials are panicking. It sums up the story of these 2 countries: clarity versus chaos, planning versus panic. Let's look at the panic in Pakistan first. They continue to provoke India along the line of control. Firing was reported yesterday as well. The 6th consecutive night of Pakistani firing. And the trajectory has been clear. Firing started in the districts of Baramulla and Kupwara, then spread to Poonch and Akhnur, then to the Rajouri district. And yesterday it reached the international border, specifically near Pargwal. This shows that Pakistan is expanding its attacks. Clearly, they're spooked and panicking. And we saw evidence of that today. Their government convened a press conference at 2 a.m. today. I'll repeat that for you. A presser at 2 in the morning by the government. What was so important that it could not wait? Listen for yourself.
Pakistan has credible intelligence that India intends carrying out military action against Pakistan in the next 24 to 36 hours on the pretext of baseless and concocted allegations of involvement in the Pahalgam incident. India's self-assumed hubristic role of judge, jury, and executioner in the region is reckless and vehemently rejected.
So Pakistan fears an imminent attack, perhaps in the next 24 to 36 hours. And how are they preparing for it? By releasing childish propaganda videos. I'll show you one such masterpiece. It was posted by the Pakistani Air Force yesterday. Take a look at this first. Very pacey and explosive, isn't it? But it's mostly fake. You see these videos and graphics, all copied from the game Call of Duty. This rocket launch, cropped from SpaceX's recent mission. And these air defense systems, well, Pakistan doesn't even have them. These are Russian S-300 or S-400 air defenses. India has them, Pakistan does not. I know these are tense times in the region, but frankly, this is laughable. How can a serious military post a video like this? But then again, this is Pakistan's military. They are known for deceit and falsehoods. So Islamabad's strategy is pretty clear: spread panic and cry victim. Which brings us to this side of the border. India's response is being planned meticulously. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi chaired a key meeting. 6 top officials were part of it. The Indian Army Chief, the Navy Chief, the Air Force Chief, the Chief of Defence Staff, the Indian Defence Minister and the National Security Advisor. They were all together. Reports say the Prime Minister expressed full confidence in the military. He also gave them a free hand, meaning the armed forces can decide on the response. They can decide on the mode, the target and the timing. Then today, the Prime Minister chaired 3 more meetings. The most important was the CCPA, that's the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, CCPA. It's often called the Super Cabinet. The last time the CCPA met was in the year 2019. It convened after the terror attack in Pulwama. After the meeting, Pakistan's trade status was downgraded. Then days later, India carried out the Balakot airstrike. So clearly, the CCPA is a key body. After this meeting, the Union Cabinet also convened. It was the first full cabinet meeting since the attack in Pahalgam. Now, all of this tells a story. Just contrast the actions of Pakistan and India. You've got Pakistani ministers running their mouths on foreign media. Then hours later, retracting what they said. You've also got junior ministers calling press conferences at 2 a.m. It's a picture of chaos and panic. Now look at India's response. First, the Cabinet Committee on Security met. Then an all-party meeting was held. Then diplomatic measures were announced. And finally, the defense chiefs were given orders. No rambling statements, no propaganda videos, and no panic. This is how a responsible country behaves. This is also how a powerful country behaves. India does not need doctored videos of fear-mongering. Its confidence comes from its people and from its strong military. Pakistan can only dream of that. At the same time, New Delhi is not being complacent. There are fears of more attacks in Kashmir. Reports say intelligence agencies have got new inputs. They suggest more attacks by the TRF, the Resistance Front, TRF, the same group which was behind last week's attack in Pahalgam. So the government is not taking chances in India. Almost 50 tourist spots in Jammu and Kashmir have been closed. These sites had inadequate security. Of course, all this preparation is only the first step. The most important step is the retaliation. We'll be tracking that closely for you.
ये वहाँ इस तरह का वाक़या दुनिया में कहीं हो जहाँ पर एक्सप्रेस भी हो।
There's an old saying about Pakistan's diplomacy. One hand extends for peace, the other loads the gun. And now the world has seen it firsthand at the United Nations Security Council, the UNSC. Last week, the UNSC condemned the terror attack in Pahalgam. But there was one glaring omission. They did not name the killers. How did that happen? We'll break it down for you. The UN Security Council has 15 members. 5 of them are permanent members. That's the United States, the United Kingdom, France, China, Russia. 5 permanent members. The other 10 are non-permanent members. Each of them is elected for a 2-year term. And right now, Pakistan is on that list. It is one of the 10 non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Now, any UNSC statement needs the consensus of all 15 members. If any one of them disagrees, the statement cannot be released. That's how it works. And that's exactly what Pakistan did. It blocked a statement until it was watered down. We told you about this a few days ago. The initial UNSC statement mentioned the TRF, that's the Resistance Front. It's an offshoot of the Pakistani terror group Lashkar-e-Toiba. The TRF was formed in 2019 after the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir. Pakistan needed a softer-sounding local group for its nefarious ambitions. So out went the familiar names tied to terrorism, and in came the Resistance Front, TRF. Right after the Pahalgam attack, the TRF claimed responsibility. Later, they backtracked. They said that their site had been hacked. Of course, no one bought that excuse, but Pakistan used that excuse to rally at the United Nations, and they admitted it themselves.
आसिफ इफ्तिखार साहब उनको क्लियर इंस्ट्रक्शंस दी कि आप लिख के 2 अमेंडमेंट्स इसमें डाल दें, क्योंकि कंसेंसस के साथ ये इशू हो सकती है, वरना ये इशू नहीं हो सकता। मुझे बड़े बड़े कैपिटल से कॉलें आई कि देखिए इस वक्त मैं कही नथिंग डूइंग, ये नहीं हो सकता, पाकिस्तान विल नॉट एक्सेप्ट। वो कहते हैं आप पे ब्लेम आएगा, प्रेस रिलीज नहीं हुई, इतना बड़ा वाकया हुआ।
That was Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar. He raised 2 objections to the original statement. First, that it mentioned Pahalgam, but did not say Jammu and Kashmir. That was his first objection. Second, the statement named the terror outfit the Resistance Front. Now, Ishaq Dar claimed that there was no evidence. And so Pakistan went to work. Dar admitted that he got calls from multiple nations, all pressuring him to back off. This continued for almost 2 days, but Pakistan held the UNSC statement hostage, refusing to budge until the TRF's name was erased. In the end, the world condemned the terror, but not the terrorists. And Pakistan got exactly what it wanted. It shows you how complicit Pakistan is. Islamabad may claim that the TRF is not linked to this, but the signs on the ground, point otherwise. Take Farooq Ahmad, for example, a top Lashkar-e-Toiba commander. Farooq Ahmad is believed to be living in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POK. But looks like his network played a role in this attack. His sleeper cells ferried the attackers in. They helped them evade detection and then allowed them in getting away. Also, this is not just terror networks. It's not just terror networks that aided in this attack. They had another helping hand, and that was Chinese technology. The terrorists were carrying equipment linked to China's Beidou navigation satellite system. Now, Beidou is China's own GPS alternative. But unlike GPS, Beidou does not depend on ground infrastructure. It doesn't need mobile towers. It can guide you through remote mountains with absolute precision. It can send encrypted messages. It can plot infiltration routes invisible to traditional surveillance. And this has helped the terrorists, this Chinese technology. It allowed them to move without being caught. So let's call a spade a spade. Pakistan is not a victim of terrorism. It is the factory that manufactures it and the salesman that exports it. Their whitewashing at the United Nations can scrub the statements, but it cannot wipe the blood on their hands. They shield the killers, they arm the killers, they give them high-end technology, and finally, they send those killers to India. Today it's the TRF, tomorrow it will be some other acronym, a new mask for the same old killers, because in Pakistan, terrorism is not just an accident. It is their business model.
These 26 men who were murdered systematically by being shot in the head were either Hindu or Christian.
There comes a moment in every story when the villain can no longer hide from their actions. For Pakistan, that moment is now. The terror attack in Pahalgam could be the last straw. Pakistan says it was not behind it. But the world is not inclined to believe it. Not even Pakistan's traditional supporters. No matter what official statements say, it is hard to pretend that this is not a terror state. And that has left Islamabad isolated. We'll start with the neighborhood. In Nepal, protesters filled the streets chanting anti-Pakistan slogans. In Janakpur, they burnt posters of Pakistan's army chief Asim Munir.
It is clearly evident that Hindus were targeted. The tourists were asked about their religion and then shot. This clearly shows that Hindus are being suppressed and targeted deliberately. India is taking action from its own side. Now we also want the government of Nepal to take similar action.
Their anger is palpable, and for a reason. Among those killed in Pahalgam was a Nepalese citizen. He was in Kashmir for a holiday, and he was gunned down by Pakistani terrorists. So Nepal wants justice, and it wants the government to take action. Then we have Afghanistan. That's the real gut punch for Pakistan. Even the Taliban has condemned this attack. They're calling it a blow to regional stability. Think about that. Even the Taliban is rebuking Pakistan for backing terrorists. Afghanistan was long seen as Pakistan's closest ally. Islamabad has aided and abetted the Taliban for years. And here they are standing in solidarity with India and condemning Pakistan because Kabul knows the cost of supporting Pakistan. They know what it means to have India on their side. One is the fifth largest and fastest growing major economy. The other is begging at the doors of the IMF. So it wasn't such a difficult choice for them. And this is where it hits the hardest. Do you remember where Prime Minister Modi was when the attack happened? He was in Saudi Arabia. The Indian Prime Minister had to cut his trip short, and Riyadh was very clear in its statement. It strongly condemned the attack in Pahalgam. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman also offered India any assistance it needed. And that should be a setback for Islamabad, because Riyadh was once a stalwart supporter of Pakistan. It still is. The two nations share excellent ties. Saudi Arabia has provided financial support to Pakistan. But looks like the tide is shifting. And not just for Riyadh, for most Gulf nations. Of course, none of this has come easy or happened overnight. It has taken India years of diplomacy and engagement. So Pakistan stands isolated, but they still have some friends, the likes of Türkiye and China, of course. Pakistan shares deep historical ties with Türkiye. Ankara has long stood by them. It has long raised the Kashmir issue at the United Nations. And they would still want to side with Pakistan, but it's really hard to ignore the violence this time. Look at their statement. This is the Turkish statement. We are deeply saddened to learn that many people lost their lives and many others were injured in the terrorist attack which targeted civilians in Pahalgam region of Jammu and Kashmir. We condemn this heinous attack. Now, there are two things to note in the statement. One, Türkiye calls it what it is, a terrorist attack, and two, they say Jammu and Kashmir. Not disputed territory, not Indian-occupied Kashmir. They say Jammu and Kashmir, which is what it is. So while Ankara may still be on Pakistan's side, this is a statement. This statement, rather, is a welcome development, a positive sign for India. Because finally, the world is seeing the full picture. Pakistan spent decades fueling terror, pretending to be a victim while playing the arsonist. This is the moment. Their mask is falling. Their old playbook, denial, deflection, distraction, is not working, and countries are finally turning away. Islamabad is left standing alone in the wreckage of its own making. Have you ever wondered how terrorists from Pakistan cross into India? By damaging the border fencing? Well, sometimes. During the thick of winter fog? Perhaps. Or by asking the Pakistani army to give cover fire? Most definitely. But today we'll tell you about one more terror path, one that is hidden and secretive. I'm talking about tunnels. And not a one-off tunnel, but a full-fledged network of tunnels. Indian armed forces are on the task. They're investigating multiple tunnel openings, mostly in the border regions of Jammu. These are tunnels that originate from Pakistan and snake their way into India. The purpose, you ask? Cross-border terrorism. We told you how the recent Pahalgam terror attack was inspired by Hamas. But the linkages go deeper. The tunnels are a case in point. Hamas used tunnels to attack Israel. They have an extensive network of tunnels. Pakistani terrorists are now doing the same to attack India. In the last 2 decades, India has uncovered 22 tunnels. That's right, 22 tunnels. All of them originate in Pakistan, and terrorists use them to enter India. Now, you may remember the Pulwama suicide bombing. 40 Indian troops were killed. This happened in 2019, and one of the key terrorists behind that attack entered India using a tunnel. Then the Nagrota army camp attack that happened in 2016. All 4 terrorists came from Pakistan using tunnels. Indian security agencies have noticed a pattern. Most of these tunnels are in the Jammu sector. Some have also been found in Samba and Kathua, which are both districts in Jammu and Kashmir. They have all one thing in common: a border with Pakistan. That's what they have in common. Indian forces say that they find more tunnels in Jammu than in Kashmir, and there's a reason why. Jammu is flat land. It is also a river basin. The soil is loose, which is perfect for digging. But it's a nightmare for spotting. And it is not just terrorists. These tunnels have been used for other things as well, like arms smuggling, narcotics smuggling, intelligence gathering, all sorts of things. Some tunnels were found to be 30 meters deep and 500 meters long. A few even had oxygen supply systems. Who is the mastermind behind these tunnels? It's the Pakistan Army. And the Indian forces have shared evidence. These tunnels were reinforced with sandbags. All of them had markings that said "Made in Karachi." Manual checks by the Indian Army have revealed that some tunnels led straight to Pakistani Army posts across the border. This screams Pakistan Army's involvement. Their tunnel rat operations have been exposed now. They cannot put the blame on rogue elements anymore. Which brings us to the challenges. How is India dismantling Pakistan's terror infrastructure? With drones and with technology. Let me explain this. Indian armed forces have deployed swarms of drones. This is in Jammu's districts. All border activity is being tracked here. Some of these drones even have ground-penetrating radars. These emit radio waves to locate underground structures, like tunnels. So that is step 1. Step 2, seismic sensors. These have been deployed near the border. They can detect any geoactivity like digging and trenching. Even the ground vibrations made by a shovel are detected. Then there is high-quality satellite imagery. These have already been put to good use. Now let's look at step 3, artificial intelligence. AI-enabled smart fences are being installed. They are optimized for detecting human movement. But the most trusted technology is still human intelligence. No sensor can replace an informed soldier. India is implementing some tried and tested conventional methods like anti-tunnel trenches. These are deep channels dug along the border. They make detection of tunnel openings easier. So Pakistan may be digging terror tunnels, but India has dug deeper with strategy and innovation. The truth is, Islamabad's playbook has not changed one bit. It continues to export terrorists by using these tunnels. Pakistan cannot think beyond proxy wars. These tunnels are not just about infiltration. They reflect the mindset of a terror-sponsoring state. They can keep denying involvement, but these tunnels speak louder than Pakistani statements. So that's how Pakistani terrorists infiltrated India. Now let's talk about why they did it. Why now? Simply put, to derail Kashmir. The region was doing well after 2019. That's when Article 370 was abrogated. Kashmir's special power, special status was taken away. It was converted from a state into a union territory in 2019. And since then, the situation has improved. Let's look at security first. In 2019, more than 280 terror attacks had been reported. By 2024, that number was down to around 40. Attacks on security forces also came down. In 2019, 96 attacks were reported. By 2024, it had come down to 5 attacks. Our security forces deserve credit for this. They managed to control the situation in Kashmir. As a result, the economy also improved. Jammu and Kashmir grew by 7.8% on average in the last 3 fiscal years. 7.8%. The national average was 7.7%. So Jammu and Kashmir did marginally better. The business atmosphere was also improving. More and more companies were being set up in the region. In fact, I have some numbers from the government. In 2019, around 3,000 companies were active in Jammu and Kashmir. 2019, 3,000 companies. By 2023, this number grew to 5,400 companies. And this year, it reached more than 8,000 companies. Clearly, things were looking up. Tourism was another success story. From 2021 to 2024, tourism grew at 15% every year. More than 23 million people visited in 2024. This was up from 21 million people in 2023. So people were feeling confident about Kashmir. They felt safe enough to travel to Kashmir. We must also praise the locals for the shift. They created this new Kashmir. We saw that last year as well. Jammu and Kashmir had its first election in a decade, and the locals eagerly participated in the process. Jammu and Kashmir reported a turnout of almost 64% in that election. That's almost on par with the national turnout in the Lok Sabha election, 64%. What does that tell you? It tells you that Kashmiris trusted the democratic process. They wanted elections, they wanted progress, and on cue, Pakistan plotted this attack because they were rattled by the development in Kashmir, because it does not suit their narrative. Pakistan's goal is to internationalize this issue. They want to turn Kashmir into a global cause, like Gaza or Yemen. But India's position has always been clear. Kashmir is a bilateral issue. It's not a global cause for activism. It's not a talking point for Islamic countries. It's an integral part of India, a part that was suddenly doing well. You had headlines about foreign investment in Kashmir, tourists were flooding the valley, and elections were concluded successfully. Pakistan could not allow this to continue. So what did they do? Well, they began plotting. In recent years, we have seen a clear shift. Violence had fallen in the Kashmir Valley, but it was marginally rising in Jammu. We saw one such attack in June last year. 9 Hindu pilgrims were killed in Jammu's Riyasi. Again, this was a rare attack, but in hindsight, it exposed Pakistan's game plan, A, to spread terror to Jammu, and B, to target tourists and pilgrims. Their idea was to derail Kashmir's success story. The question is, will they succeed? Tourism will take time to return to normal. The government and the locals will have to work hard to get these people back, to get the tourists back. It's a game of patience and confidence. But the good news is that Kashmir is fighting back. We saw locals lining up to help the tourists. We saw mosques and religious leaders condemning the attack, and the whole valley shut down for the first time in 35 years. And that has sent a clear message to Pakistan. You do not have support in Kashmir. Kashmiris want peace and prosperity. They do not want guns and violence. Terror sponsors usually get shunned. They become a pariah on the global stage. But not Pakistan. Terrorism is their ticket to fame, and some organizations are shamelessly platforming them. I'm talking about Harvard University. Last week, they hosted a Pakistan conference. And look at the speakers. Mohammad Aurangzeb, Pakistan's foreign minister, and Rizwan Sheikh, Pakistan's ambassador to the United States. On the 27th of April, they spoke at Harvard just days after the deadly terror attack in Kashmir's Pahalgam. Indians were still in shock. The families were still grieving. The attackers were still at large. Yet what did Harvard do? They hosted Pakistani politicians at a conference. Basically, they platformed a terror sponsor. Indian students did try to protest this. They wrote a letter to the college authorities with 3 demands. 1, condemn the Kashmir attack. 2, cancel the Pakistani delegation. And 3, provide support to affected students. And what did Harvard do? Well, nothing. They went ahead with the conference anyway. Afterwards, the college released a statement. Let me quote from what they said. The institute supports academic research projects and works with other university partners. One such event was the Pakistan conference organized by students from Harvard. The students, along with their faculty advisor, independently determined the topics and speakers presenting. So Harvard is now distancing itself from what happened here. They're putting all the blame on students. Very brave of the college. Also very hypocritical, if I may add. Like I said, Indian students did flag this issue with them. It's not like the college was unaware of what was happening. They knew that the attack had happened on April 22nd. They knew Pakistan was involved. They knew Pakistani leaders were coming on the 27th. And yet, they did nothing. This is not an academic endeavor. This is whitewashing terrorism. But then again, we are talking about Harvard University. The university has a history of poor choices. Consider what happened after the Hamas attack on Israel. Rival protests broke out on campus. Instead of cracking down, Harvard University turned a blind eye. The result, both sides were hurt. Harvard conducted an internal survey recently. This is what they found. 67% Jewish students expressed discomfort on campus, and so did 80% of the Muslim students. How about that? Harvard prides itself on quality education, but it cannot even keep its students safe. It has become a hotbed of radical politics and discrimination. The question is, what is the US government doing? Is it fine with Harvard platforming terror sponsors? We haven't heard from the White House yet, but Donald Trump is not a fan of this university. He froze federal funding for them. And right now, he's locked in a legal battle with Harvard. Of course, that fight is over anti-Semitism. He may not be as aggressive over Pakistan. And that's the issue here, really. Your response to terrorism cannot be dictated by your politics. It has to be free of any bias. You also cannot leave it to students. The college authorities must take the lead. And they have in the past. Let me take you back to 2018. A Saudi prince was set to deliver a lecture at Harvard. He had given the same lecture there 5 times in 15 years. But in November 2018, he was asked not to come. Do you know why? Because that year, Saudi Arabia was accused of killing a journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. If the college could step in then, why not now? Because this time there is no political will. There is no intention to hold Pakistan accountable. This is the unfortunate reality of our world. Terrorism in most places is fought by dozens of countries. Terrorism from Pakistan is left for India to handle alone. Now let's talk about Nvidia. It is the undisputed leader of AI chips. By some accounts, Nvidia controls more than 90% of the AI chip market. It is the brain behind ChatGPT, but Nvidia now seems to have competition from China's Huawei. Huawei is testing its newest and most powerful artificial intelligence processor, one that it hopes can replace Nvidia chips. What will this mean for the American company? And can China dethrone Nvidia in this chip war? Our next report explores.
In the high-stakes arms race for artificial intelligence, it's Nvidia's green logo that casts the longest shadow. The company's chips are passports to the future. If you want to build a smarter chatbot, design a faster self-driving car, odds are you need Nvidia inside your machine. Nvidia controls over 90% of the AI chip market, and that's why it's valued at over $2.8 trillion. If you invested $1,000 in Nvidia a decade ago, it would be worth $228,490 today. But empires, as history teaches us, rarely go unchallenged. And somewhere behind the Great Firewall, China has been plotting for some time. Huawei is preparing to test its newest and most powerful AI processor. Reports suggest Huawei has approached some Chinese tech companies. They want them to test the technical feasibility of the new chip. It's called the Ascend 910D. Huawei is hoping that this new chip will be more powerful than Nvidia's H100 chip. There's a catch, of course. Huawei's chip is power-hungry, less efficient, and it's being built under crushing constraints. But this is very important for Beijing. China has been trying to get high-end chips for some time now. The US has stopped Beijing from accessing Nvidia's most advanced AI products. This includes its flagship B200 chip. Washington hopes that limiting China's ability to get the chips will hamper technological development. It had also banned the sale of the H100 chip to China in 2022. Earlier this month, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang flew to Beijing. Huang met with Vice Premier He Lifeng and other Chinese officials. This was to emphasize the importance of the Chinese market, especially amid the escalating trade war. But that doesn't seem to have helped, and Huawei isn't alone. Beijing has been orchestrating a national effort, pushing companies like Cambricon Technologies to develop local alternatives. They are subsidizing purchases of Chinese chips and encouraging AI developers to buy domestic. The goal is very clear. China wants technological sovereignty. In a world increasingly built on AI, China refuses to be dependent on an American gatekeeper. In the short term, Huawei's challenge might feel more symbolic than existential. Nvidia is still the gold standard. Its software ecosystem, engineering talent, and global reach give it a moat that Huawei can't easily cross. And Beijing's domestic alternatives are mainly staying within China. But look a little further ahead, and the battle lines of a chip war emerge. Two separate AI ecosystems, both developing in parallel. And if Beijing keeps subsidizing its AI industry, then Nvidia may find that the biggest threat to its empire isn't competition from another US giant. It's a technological insurgency from the other side of the Pacific, one that is slow but relentless. After all, great empires are rarely toppled in a single battle. They are eroded bit by bit until the ground beneath them shifts.
Now let's talk about trade, tariffs and Donald Trump. India is one step closer to a deal with the US. New Delhi could be the first to strike a deal with Washington, and we are not the ones saying this. The US president is saying it himself. Donald Trump made the declaration. Listen to this.
India is coming along great. I think we'll have a deal with India. The Prime Minister, as you know, was here 3 weeks ago, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
President Trump says a deal with India is on its way. The US Treasury Secretary has echoed the sentiment. His name is Scott Bessent. He is in charge of America's economic policies. Bessent is bullish on a deal with India. Here's what he said last night.
As I mentioned, Vice President Vance was in India last week. I think that he and Modi made some very good progress, so I could see some announcements on India.
As Trump's America First agenda unfolds, India sees itself placed strategically. So why is India a high priority for Donald Trump, and what's at stake here? Let's try and decode this. Talks are now in the final stages. US officials say the deal is done from their side. They're waiting for New Delhi's green signal. And here's what's on the table. India may offer the most favored nation status to the United States. This is what reports say, most favored nation status. This is a tag that is rarely granted by India. It is a clause in the World Trade Organization. Basically, two countries have to treat each other equally in terms of trade, which means that India and the US will have to let go of the tariffs. So most favored nation tag means easier trade. Of course, there's more to it, and it's not going to be that simple or that easy. Trump may be the US president, but he's also a tough negotiator. For him, relationships mean business. And here's what he wants from India. Lower tariffs on American goods like Harley-Davidson motorcycles, access for American dairy and agricultural goods, and less protectionism. And that last part is a sticking point, considering that the US president is the poster boy of protectionism himself. And what are India's demands? Well, first, tariff cuts on steel and aluminium. Second, easier access for Indian pharmaceuticals and textiles. Third, cooperation in tech and AI. And fourth, become the top supplier to US markets vacated by China. This is what India wants for things like iPhones and semiconductors. Now, both sides have spelled out their terms and conditions. The deal could be finalized anytime soon. What does that mean for India? Well, for starters, this could be a game changer. The US is already India's largest trading partner. Bilateral trade stands at $130 billion. So a deal could boost Indian exports, which means more jobs. It would also solidify India's position as a global manufacturing hub. And what would Trump gain? Well, optics to start with. Strike a deal with India and show that America is open for business. This would be a major foreign policy win for the US president, considering how badly the tariffs have unraveled for him. His actions sent global markets crashing, At home, his approval ratings are at an all-time low, so Trump is desperate for a deal. Here's why India is at the top of his list. For Trump, New Delhi checks all the right boxes. He has a good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, which means progress on talks should be positive. It could unlock immense opportunities for either side. Amazon has done something bold. The e-commerce giant has crossed Trump's red line. I'm talking about tariffs. Amazon wanted to show Americans the cost of Trump's policies. The plan was to list product prices and show how tariffs were being added to them. So the original price plus the tariff. Naturally, the US president was not happy. Trump dialed Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos. The result? A retreat. Amazon has dropped the plan to display tariff prices on their website. But the White House is still fuming. They have called Amazon's intentions a hostile political act. The company's backtrack shows one thing: how easily corporate giants can bend to political pressure. So will this be the new normal in Trump's America? Our next report has more.
When you're in the mood for shopping online, where do you usually scroll? Walmart, Target, or the biggest e-commerce retailer, Amazon? Well, Amazon just had a close shave with none other than US President Donald Trump. The reason? Tariffs. Amazon had big plans for its website. The e-commerce giant reportedly wanted to show Americans why their favorite products were now more expensive. Amazon planned to add the cost of tariffs to each listing and show by how much the prices had risen. Enter Donald Trump. The US president was naturally unhappy. For him, tariffs are more than a policy, they are a statement. And Trump did what he claims he does best: negotiate a deal. Trump got on the phone, but not with the Amazon Group's president, Andy Jassy, but with Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos.
Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
Within hours, Amazon issued a clarification that it had no plans of adding tariffs to its website. But the U-turn wasn't enough. The White House was livid, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt came out swinging.
This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm.
Now let's look at the facts. The tariffs are no small matter. They are the reason why Americans are paying more. Almost 70% of all listed goods on Amazon are from China. The tariffs mean that these products will be costlier. What Amazon tried to do was definitely bold. But were they fighting for the customer or picking a fight with Trump?
We'll make a lot of changes.
Either way, they are now towing Trump's line. Because the tariffs are a personal battle for the US president. His America First economic policies are centered around tariffs, so he'll go to any lengths to defend them. But Amazon's retreat spells what's in store for the future. Corporate giants will have to bend to political pressure. In Trump's America, businesses will have to tread carefully. They will have to navigate the trade war without picking a fight with the president. But in the end, only one group will pay the price: ordinary Americans.
For our last story tonight, let's talk about fundamental rights. These are basic human freedoms and rights which are guaranteed to every citizen. In India, every citizen has the right to life and liberty. It is enshrined in Article 21 of the Constitution of India. And now, the country's apex court has passed a landmark ruling. That's the Supreme Court of India. It says that the right to life also includes the right to digital access. Meaning, digital access is now a fundamental right in India. It is guaranteed to every Indian citizen. And the state has an obligation to bridge the digital divide. So what is behind this ruling? And will it work on the ground? Here's a report.
Pragya Prasoon was 22 when a man threw acid at her. She had 47% burns. She went through 9 surgeries. After surviving the brutal attack, she set up a home, had 2 daughters, and started rebuilding her life. But the problems were far from over. In 2023, she tried opening a bank account. As per the mandatory digital verification, KYC or Know Your Customer, Prasoon had to undergo several tasks, including visual verification checks, such as capturing a live photograph by blinking her eyes. But Prasoon couldn't do it. The acid attack had left her eyes disfigured. So she couldn't open her bank account. Soon, outrage on social media followed. The bank made an exception. Prasoon got her account, and that is when she vowed to bring about change. She filed petitions in court, raising concerns about how disabled persons, including acid attack survivors, find it nearly impossible to complete the KYC process successfully. And now, in response to the public interest litigations, India's apex court has passed a landmark judgment. The Supreme Court has ruled that digital access is a fundamental right, meaning it is a basic and inherent liberty guaranteed to every Indian citizen. The order says inclusive and meaningful digital access to governance and welfare part of the fundamental right to life and liberty. It says that the state has an obligation to create an inclusive digital ecosystem for the marginalized, underprivileged, vulnerable, disabled, and historically excluded sections. Now, this may be surprising. After all, digital penetration is quite high in India. The world's populous nation is home to about 806 million internet users. But this doesn't mean that they all have equal access to digital welfare instruments. For instance, as per government data, only 24% of rural households have internet access, compared to 66% in cities. According to the apex court, there is an unfriendly digital atmosphere in the country. At a time when access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities is increasingly allowed via digital means. The digital divide has crippled the disadvantaged sections of the country. So, the court has issued 20 directions to the government to improve the digital KYC process. This includes making sure that citizens with disfigurement or impairments can establish their identity digitally to access essential services. It also mandates greater digital inclusion of India's rural populations, senior citizens, economically weaker communities, and linguistic minorities. After all, bridging the digital divide is not just a policy issue. In today's world, it is imperative to life itself, to a life of dignity, access, and equal participation. The Supreme Court has taken a step in the right direction. Now, real change on the ground must follow.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. North Korea conducts the first test firing of its new warship's weapons system. In Egypt, the skies turn hazy orange as a Sahara dust storm sweeps through the country. And Vietnam celebrates 50 years since the end of the war with the United States. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life in an underground bunker as Soviet troops closed in on Berlin. Soon after his death, Nazi Germany surrendered to Allied forces. This marked the end of the Second World War. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.